Let's get you an update on this now. The ANC Gauteng Provincial Task Team is meeting in Fourways for a two-day lekgotla to discuss local government coalition agreements as well as other issues on the agenda. Here's SABC News reporter Natasha Phiri, who's watching developments for us this hour. So Natasha, we saw a bit earlier on the Gauteng Provincial Convener Amos Masondo delivering there his overview. Talk to us about this.
Well, thank you so much, Mkolisi. Of course, yes, he delivered his political overview, focusing on the state of the various municipalities here in Gauteng. Of course, those water, I beg your pardon, service delivery challenges that they're focusing on, particularly water. But I'm just joined by the provincial coordinator, Mr. Papo, who will just delve into that political overview and, of course, other pressing issues that this provincial task team will be deliberating on for the next 2 days. Papo, thank you so much for joining us on SABC News. I think first and foremost, the state of local government, particularly the issue of water. We've seen that intervention coming out of the State of the Nation address, where President Cyril Ramaphosa said he's going to set up a water crisis committee. We've got commitments from various ministers saying that tomorrow there will be water in various households, communities and businesses. The ANC's standpoint on this issue in the province?
Firstly, the Gauteng 13 priorities plus 2 include water infrastructure, and the Premier indicated in the State of the Province address that water is one of the critical issues. Basically, infrastructure maintenance and infrastructure replacement. It's an area we're going to discuss with clear time frames, short, medium and long term. Because as you heard from the ministry, the mayor, the various mayors and the MEC for Kokta, there are certain short-term things. When you repair, it's short-term. When you replace, it's medium to long-term. For us, it's important that there must be always interaction with communities, and the program of water tanks, which for us must be a temporary measure whilst we are repairing, should not be a permanent feature. So we are pleased that the President says water, like electricity, will be given national attention. It means that some of the resources will be diverted, particularly in the metros where many people live. So the issues we're going to discuss around water in the Commission on Local Government Intervention and Legislation Governance is sort of at the time frames which we will indicate once we give the feedback on the lekgotla. Between now and June, the immediate one is the flowing of water back in the homes of people. But ultimately, you need maintenance, you need replacement of the old infrastructure. They've already indicated that that has been a problem, and we think now that it's part of a national agenda, because we also don't want solutions in our province. But in other provinces, there are no solutions. People will come into Gauteng if solutions in water are solved. It must be in Gauteng, yes, but nationally, the issue of water, like with energy, is now a priority, which everybody says is a priority. We agree with that.
Let's look at issues of governance, coalition agreements, working agreements with other parties. You would have seen the EFF leader, Julius Malema, saying that he's going to stop all cooperation with the ANC in key municipalities across Gauteng, Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, the city of Johannesburg. I know on the sidelines of the ANC lekgotla in January, the ANC GP had met with you and, the chairs of the various regions. Have you engaged the EFF on this matter to try to dissuade them from actually pulling out?
We have engaged with them, but obviously we cannot explain what we said to them. We still feel that we can cooperate with them, because the EFF is not being kicked out of any municipality by the ANC.
But they're walking out because of Mayor Nkosi Ndiphile Qhakaza. Have you spoken to Qhakaza about this issue?
No, all our regions are part of the discussions, including our report back. We've always been in touch with the EFF, including that time there was a problem between the PA and the EFF in Johannesburg. We discussed that with the EFF. The EFF is not being kicked out of municipality. The issue we're discussing with the EFF is about the number of MMCs in Ekurhuleni. That's the issue we're actually engaging the EFF. And that's the issue the EFF is actually probably upset about. But in Johannesburg, there will be no change. In Tshwane, there will not be change. In Mukhali, there will not be change in terms of the configuration of the coalition. So we explained to them that the status quo remains, but there's been a problem in terms of the number of MMCs in Ekurhuleni, where they are currently having 4, and Ekurhuleni feel there should be 2.
There's that issue of Mfuleni. Let's just focus on that. You saw that letter where Sipho Radebe had written to the ANC Secretary General, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, asking for his intervention. He says he was convened on the 10th of February this past week by the regional leadership of Sedibeng to say he must step down as the mayor. What is your reaction to that?
Obviously, issues of deployment of ANC members into any position, it's a matter which is discussed by regional officials and provincial officials. They are not discussed by REC, RWC, PEC, PTT, Working Committee. Deployment matters are matters of officials. So what they've communicated to him, and generally there's no discussion when people are deployed. When people are asked to step down, why should there should be an issue?
According to him, he says he's managed to turn around the municipality, the woes of the municipality. But I mean, I guess you have to judge for yourself.
Let me give you
the
an
state
example
of Mfuleni.
why these issues are managed this way. At some point, I was an MEC for health in Gauteng. The organization came to me and said to me, I have to not be an MEC in the new term of 2014 to 2019 because there must be 6 women MECs. Must I go to the organization and say there must be hands off me or something like that? Deployment and redeployment is not a matter where you apply for a job and then you then say when there's a change, some people must then intervene. No.
So essentially you're saying Sipho Radebe must respect the wishes of the REC and step down as the mayor.
It's not a matter of the REC. Remember, it's not a metro. Metros are discussed by regions and provincial officials. I mean, metros are discussed by a region, province, and national officials. Districts and local municipalities are discussed by provinces and PTT officials and REC officials. So the letter will be considered, but it's incorrect for anybody not to have a discussion when they are deployed. When they are asked to actually be redeployment comes, it must be a public issue. Because when people are employed, there's no letter which is sent to anybody. People are just taking and thank the organization and the people are not being told to go and sit at home. The issue of being a chair, a chief whip, an MMC, it's an addition to you being a public representative. Our spokesperson himself, he was an MEC for Kokta. He did not make a halabaloo when he's no longer an MEC. So we must actually send a message to all ANC members who are chairpersons, chief whips, MMCs, MECs, that deployment is not a matter which is it's a mass discussion for mass discussion. When you are deployed, there's no discussion. When there's a change, you must accept that there's going to be a change because the organization has got particular decisions which is actually taking. This is the discipline we expect from all public representatives of the ANC.
Mr. Papo, let's look at the war room. When you're establishing the ANC war room, focusing on local government elections, and also as we move towards the local government elections, there's a provincial conference of the ANC in Gauteng that needs to take place. We've been seeing some people now endorsing Panyaza Lusufi for a certain position, Men Nomantu for a certain position. When is the exact date of the provincial conference?
We remember the NEC took a decision that conferences must actually be happen by the end of March, but because Gauteng, KZN and Western Cape are special provinces where there was intervention by the NEC. The leadership accepted that it's not practically possible to go to a conference at the end of March. So we had to, with the mandate of the PTT, talk to the Office of the Secretary General. They've agreed that the conference will have to be in May. For now, the date which has been accepted, bar delays on disputes, delays on appeals, and so on, the date is the 15th to the 17th of May. And that roadmap has been issued to all our structures. The second issue you're asking is about standing. At our last PTT meeting, our regions have been saying, because it's important that Gauteng is a special project of the organization, they are appealing to us that the PTT leaders must consider discussion about a consensus leadership. That was so we need to actually discuss that issue. So when people send information about this incoming, it has no really meaning, that issue, because branches must still nominate people. And we generally don't approve of that kind of an approach, because we still have to discuss the work with the PTT has done on issues of rebuilding the organization, renewing the organization. So that is the major issue we must focus on. The issue of who's incoming and who's coming in and out has nothing to do with the work with the PTT has actually been given by the National Executive Committee, which is to improving governance, ensuring without interfering in governance, because improving governance does not mean you interfere in governance, day-to-day operations of governance. But we are interested on the issues which the action plan agreed to, G13+2 agreed to, so that we're going to do an assessment, for example, of all the issues which we agreed to at the lekgotla in May last year. We've been doing periodic assessments internally through the various subcommittees of the PTT, but now it's sort of a broad-based assessment of the work we had agreed on, and the issues of Gauteng 13 priorities +2 plus the national action plan are going to be actually looked at. So my response to you is that when BGM start, people will be nominated, but in the meantime we will be discussing our approach to leadership, because it can't be business as usual. You're just having people incoming, others going out in a province where there was a special intervention by the National Executive Committee. So we're calling for discipline by all our members throughout the province. It's not business as usual. Even our approach to leadership must be different. We must not approach it as if we're still sitting at 65, 67%, 54%. We are in a very difficult situation. So our members, our supporters must also help us in coming out with a leadership. Our first prize is a consensus leadership. That's our first prize, which we are going to ensure that our branches, our regions and PTT members discuss. And if we have that, it will be great, because it will not defocus us from the work of rebuilding the organization. It will not defocus from us improving governance.
And just lastly, I haven't heard the voice of the PTT on this matter. I might have missed it. National has spoken about it. The regional leadership of the ANC in Joburg has spoken about it. The court case that has been opened against those alleged ballot papers that were found in Tshwane, that being of the ANC in Johannesburg. What is your standpoint and your viewpoint?
Our standpoint is that the regional elections committee, which is convened by PTT members who have the constitutional mandate to oversee that conference, have to do an inquiry and look at complaints which would have been put in the front. That's the only constitutional process which the ANC is allowed to do in Gauteng and in Johannesburg. The regional electoral committee must do an inquiry on whatever issue, including the issue of the Tshwane saga. They must actually then interrogate. But in a meeting which the SG convened with the regional officials, ourselves and the REC of Johannesburg, he made it clear the issues of ballot papers have nothing to do with the election of the REC of Johannesburg. There was an issue which was raised about gender parity being effected at the conference. So the circumstances into which that gender parity was done 8 days after the conference is the matter which the regional electoral committee must actually get into. Because if the constitution of the ANC says there must be 50-50 in the REC, and if there's no 50, the electoral committee is empowered to then effect gender parity, and they effect it by looking at after the men who would have been in the REC, who's the highest woman after that, and then they don't even have to get permission. They put that woman to be in the. That's the issue which affect the ballot papers and so on. But as I said, the electoral committee will have to do an inquiry, and the electoral committee is not an electoral committee, as I said, chaired by the regional executive committee. It's the members of the PTT who are constitutionally empowered to oversee that conference. So that's the only constitutional process which we are going to subject whatever complaint in Johannesburg is. But for now, the REC is duly elected, but we just have to inquire and be sure that everything about the process of particularly the gender parity issue, and it was done in terms of the constitution.
Mr. Hope Papo, thank you so much for your time. That indeed was Mr. Hope Papo, who is the provincial coordinator of the ANC's provincial task team in Gauteng, of course, convening their two-day lekgotla, speaking everything about, the local government elections, the water crisis, the letter by the mayor of Emfuleni, Mr. Sipho Radebe, asking the ANC Secretary General, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, to actually intervene after he was asked by his REC, or the regional office bearers, to actually step aside as mayor. So, Kolisi, we're here throughout the whole day. We'll be giving you various reflections, not only on the water crisis, the e-hailing driver who was unfortunately brutally killed earlier on this week. We expect the MMC of Transport in Tshwane to actually react to this issue and also just speak to us about service delivery issues there in the city of Tshwane. So we will be bringing you more of this as our team is actually stationed here at the Ndaba Hotel in Fourways. But that said, it's back to you in studio.
Great. Natasha Phiri watching developments for us on that story. Thanks so much for that update, Natasha.